We are live. Hi, Kelly. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, imagine I said something dumb before we got started.
See if you can calm down tonight. Is that possible, Jay?
Yeah, it is. It's rare, but it happens. I don't know why I always stay so high strung. I don't. I you would think that by now, at this stage of my life, I'd start to wind down just a touch. Yeah, it's not happening.
That's great. It's who you are. It's why we love you.
Oh, great. We love it. We love you because you're insane.
Exactly. It makes the rest of us feel a little bit more sane.
That is well worth it then. If it makes everybody else feel better, I'm doing a great job. I'm doing my part for society.
Thanks for doing your part, Jay.
I was actually talking about you just the other day.
Oh, yeah?
My
What are
son,
you doing?
my son said he was interested in going skydiving. He says, "You want to go?" I said, "Nope, I'm done with that idea. I'm done. I don't know.
Yeah.
I no longer want to go." Hey, Tessa, how you doing? And I'm like, "Nope, I'm done." He's like, "Why?" I was like, "I broke things that can't be broke. I'm not pushing my luck no more. I'm done."
Yeah. Is he going to go to Middletown?
Yeah. I have a cousin of mine. Her and her husband come up and jump there quite a bit. So the next time they're up, I won't get a hold of him so he can go there and talk more with him and things like that and see how it progresses. If he's really serious, and by all means, I'll encourage him. But yeah,
Do you know that they're the #1 drop zone in the country?
they try to get him, the city here, try to get him shut down.
Really?
Oh,
Wow.
yeah, they were fighting bad.
The accident with the propeller?
Yeah, but that's been a couple of years ago.
Yeah, huh.
Yeah, I don't know what it was.
Record is really good, so I'm surprised.
They didn't succeed. They did not succeed.
Good.
So, which is a good thing. So, well, kind of, I know those people see me about 3 or 4 nights a week. I'm sorry. No, I'm not. That's why I keep doing it.
Right?
Some of them may or may not know you. Let's talk about a little bit about Callea and how we met and where we're going with this tonight.
Oh my God.
Or how many days we ever do it.
Yeah, what are we gonna do? And by the way, I know you said that I would be able to see chat. I can't see chat. So no, I can't. So if anybody has questions that you think are important for me, that's good. And that's good anyway, because I don't want to hear people yelling at me anyway. So I'm good.
Now when you put it on the screen?
What's that?
Could you see it there on the screen?
I can't.
Oh,
though, I wonder if it's because it might be because I have 2 windows shrunk because I have some notes over on the left-hand side. So I might not be able to see the whole side of your studio screen.
that might be.
So if you see a question for me, just
I would definitely let you know.
Yeah, let me know. But okay, so as far as me, wow, it's been forever ago now. From 2009 to 2012, I was the resident paranormal investigator at the Stanley Hotel. I met you, I think it was a year later. It would have been in just a few months later. It still was 2012, I think, in May 2012. I came out to do a presentation with Steve and Sean from Into the Dark Radio. They had an event at the school, and you and Teresa had just started working there at the time. And that's when I did my first skydive, actually, at Middletown. You guys came and watched.
Absolutely.
And we all just clicked. The 3 of us, we just got along, we got each other. And we enjoyed investigating together. We always enjoyed socializing together, going out and having some double nuts.
You want to introduce Teresa to Angry Balls? We'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, Angry Balls with 2 shots equals double nuts. But I mean, we've just always had fun, and we've always respected each other in the paranormal field. We don't even agree in the paranormal. Sometimes we disagree about methods, or we disagree about how this might happen or that might happen, but we've always respected each other's opinion.
And tried it.
Yeah, absolutely. And listen to each other. And then at the end, we may say, you know what, I'm still not on board with that, but I can understand why you are.
Yeah,
and so I kind of wanted to take that into this new arena that we're all experiencing these days. where you can respect each other. You can even end up agreeing to disagree. But in the end, you say, I'm still not on board with that, but I can understand why you are. And I wanted to kind of be an example that it's possible to do that, you know?
I'm in
So,
trouble. I got my thinking cap on tonight.
oh, yeah, well, I might have to too.
But what you said there is so very true. There's a lot of my styles and techniques that I know that a lot of people disagree with, and we've discussed it and stuff. But that's the one thing that I can always say, that whenever I've discussed anything with you, whether it be about paranormal investigating or me when I'm started out trying to learn about the runes and things like that, you're one of the people that I've always went to for guidance, and you've always pointed me to something that I didn't think of on my own. You and Teresa have been big influences on that thing, as far as the whole, I'm going to use her hashtag, feel the energy. Because I was always about using the equipment. Yeah. And Teresa's always like, no, let it loose. And I first started doing it. The only people I really relied on to it was you and Teresa, because I trusted you guys. Of course, I trust Teresa, because hell, I've given her my last 33 years of my life. Said, here, do what you want with it. I'm a dumbass. So we've had many discussions, and we've still been able to maintain absolute friendship and respect for one another. Even when I'm doing the absolute dumb shit, like, bet you can't push me out the window.
Yeah. And I think that that's good. I think it's good to have friends who think differently than you. Because if we all thought exactly the same, wouldn't the world be such a boring place?
Oh, I wouldn't want to wake up. I just want to snooze all the time. Forget.
Right?
Is anything exciting happening? Nope. Wake me up tomorrow. I'll be Rip Van Winkle. But the good thing about it is that, my opinion, having these differences allows myself, and being open-minded about that and accepting of that, allows myself to be challenged to push me to levels that I never thought I would have done before.
I agree. Me too. When I'm not being open-minded about things, it limits me. It limits what I can learn. It limits the information that can be processed. It limits what I might be able to bring into my life in a different way. And so I like being open-minded. And I've always been really open-minded, and so have you. Even if we think differently, we're still open-minded to things.
I used to not be open-minded at all.
Well, I mean, since I've known you. I don't know about in the past, but since I've known you, you are always willing to say, I'll at least consider that. What I respect about you.
I'll take that good advisement.
Okay. That's what I see you. Maybe you don't see yourself that way. So
no, I am so much better now than what I used to be. If the me of 20 years ago, and I was making jokes about this the other day, Hunter's now 21. And I said, man, if the me of 30 years ago saw the me now, I'd make so much fun of me. I'd probably kick my own ass. Like, what is happening? You sold out. You become an old sissy. But as I think about it, I mean, we're talking about it, I've not become an old sissy. I'm living proof of, you can't become older and wiser until you've lived through young and dumber. You really can't. It is a progression.
Agreed.
It truly is.
I've been young and dumber too. Trust me. Trust me when I say this.
We all have. Just some of us were smart enough to learn our lessons from conversations, and some of us had to go ahead and stick our finger in the light socket.
Well, I don't think you can have wisdom until you have been young and dumb, because you can't truly be wise and give other people advice unless you have been where they are. That's what I think. So
yeah, absolutely. And my son, I love him to death, but he's just like his dad. I hate to say that. If you do this, it's going to hurt. No, I got this, old man. It's just, things are different now. Bam. Oh, sorry, Dad, you were right. I tried to tell you.
Yeah, they don't always want to learn from us. I have a niece, my oldest niece. She is my mini me. She is me when I was her age, and it terrifies me.
It does.
I know what
I'm like, just don't start wrecking stuff and throwing. There's certain things about my past I still don't tell my son, because I think he's still in that stage where he'd try it.
Yeah.
Don't do it.
I know the feeling. Trust me.
But it has been, our friendship has been, we'll go sometimes periods of times without communicating.
Mhm.
And one of us will just hit the other one up. Hey, how you doing? Just
Yeah.
thinking. It's like,
I
I'm
mean,
good.
we stay in touch on Facebook, liking and supporting each other's posts and, that type of thing. But we don't always talk. And I haven't seen you guys. I'm trying to remember. I think it would have been at the Collingwood Arts Center,
Yeah,
not last September,
the following September.
the year before.
Yeah.
So it's been almost 2 years since I've seen you.
And that's my fault because let's be honest about it. It's our turn to take a trip that way. You came this way 2 or 3 times. It's our turn to come your way.
I tried to invite you to the Hornet, but then of course that ended up getting canceled because everything got shut down. So
that's part of our conversation we'll get into tonight, I guarantee.
what's that? Oh, uh-oh.
Well, I know that we're going to not, while we progress with this, whether it be just tonight or we go into several nights of this and things, I know that a lot of times we will get into current affairs and current situations of what's going on in the world, because that's one thing that I always say about a lot of these paranormal shows that I always do. The reason why I do them the way that I proceed to do them, and it gets Teresa mad at me sometimes, and so some of the others, but all of us are more than just what we do in the paranormal. And if only thing we talk about is what we do in the paranormal, then we're going around things to talk about. We're so multifaceted of human beings, and there's so much going on in the world that we need to be multifaceted about. And that's kind of like the lines of what you wanted to do with this here, is to cover those many facets and stuff. Correct?
I agree. Yeah, I agree. Because there is more.
I always felt like I had a brain there for a moment.
Almost. See, Jay, I always think you have a brain. I just think you don't give yourself enough credit. So,
well, yes. I can't argue with that one. I'm just going to agree. You're right.
Now, if we can just continue with that through the rest of the evening, where you just saying you're right, then we'll be fine.
No, that part we won't do. I will agree, but I also agree with, and you know how I am. I'll agree with stipulations. I see this point, but this part about it I disagree with.
Right.
That's something though that we both are really good at. We admit to what we agree, the portions that we agree with, and we will admit to what the portion that we don't agree with, but we will also explain why we disagree.
Right. Which is a conversation I think is important to have, because I've noticed, especially over the past few weeks, I've been making some posts and I've been doing some things that people don't really agree with. And I think a lot of people are actually surprised, maybe in my stance a little bit, but nobody has really been willing to have a conversation about it. I can just tell that they have just hidden me, because they are not interacting with me at all anymore when they used to interact with me a lot. And I'm cool with that. I even put up a post and I said, hey, if you don't like what I'm talking about, please feel free, hide me, unfriend me, do whatever you need to do. Just don't talk shit on my posts. That's not okay. And so I think a lot of people have hit the unfollow or the snooze button, and I'm cool with that. But I would, in a way, at least with the people that I'm good friends with, I would rather them have a conversation and say, can you explain a little bit more about what you're talking about? I don't understand. Do you really feel this way? Because I'm getting the feeling that you think this way, and I'm feeling like I'm putting out that I'm, kind of in the middle of what I'm feeling. And I think we're not understanding, but it's because people are just hitting the hide button. And so my purpose for tonight is for us to just say, hey, let's figure out how we can all have a conversation with each other, disagree, say we disagree, but without the name calling and without the horrible posts that people make, complete strangers on social media. I don't understand that. I don't see how that works.
I don't see it with strangers, and I really don't see how people consider themselves friends. Somebody just the other day posted a big post. I'm doing a big purge on my Facebook page, and anybody that's a racist is going to go. Well, how are you judging them by being a racist?
And they're not having a conversation with them. They're not saying to them, I don't understand. Can you explain a little bit more? And there are times when I've found some people who are just flat out racist that surprise me. And they're gone. I'm not going to deal with that. I have zero tolerance for that. But I also understand that there are people who have, maybe they have biases, maybe they have just ways that they've been brought up to believe, but they're not racist. They're not the big R word. And if you're not having the conversations with people, you don't understand where they're coming from. And I don't think that's fair.
See, I almost made a post, and believe it or not, I actually had to stop myself and question myself in this post. But I knew that people of an older generation, my age and stuff like that, would get it more than what my son and his friends would get. But it was Archie Bunker and George Jefferson, and it said Archie Bunker and Jefferson for 2020. They would straighten this country right out. And I thought, you know what? Most younger people only know of Archie being a bigot and George being a bigot. They don't understand that that was one of the ways that they approached those things back then. We made fun of ourselves, we made fun of each other to try to use comedy to try to change things. And I don't think a lot of people nowadays would have appreciated it. So I thought, you know what? Even though it's not racist, I guarantee you, because the pretext of what those two guys were back at that time, I'm automatically going to be called a racist next time we have a fight over this. And I really don't want to, because if anybody knows me, right, I'm a camouflage looking redneck, but I am the farthest from a racist. I can't stand it. I can't. I actually can't tolerate it. I won't tolerate it. I have family members that are of all colors and all. I don't care. Right. My cousin who is transgender, I'm proud of her, and it's still every once in a while I slip up and say him, and she corrects me. She goes, but you're an old man and you're forgetful, and I forgive you for that. I'm like, what does it become age discrimination?
Right.
My family, we still use humor, but it is still a very serious topic.
Humor is okay to diffuse the topic too. There are times when humor is just not okay, but that's pretty rare. I think that humor is a great way to, like I said, to diffuse the topic and to kind of put out what people are thinking and what they're saying, but it doesn't have to be so goddamn serious all the time.
Absolutely.
There can be some humor with it. And, Archie Bunker and George Jefferson are a good example of that. I mean, they got the conversation started. And, that's kind of what's happening now, is getting the conversation started in a different way and from a new and different perspective. So,
but with me being fans of those two, love both their shows. Love them. I thought they were great. I still tend to come at it from that angle. And today is a lot more sensitive as a society. And that's why I chose not to post it.
Right. It's rare
for me to do that.
Right. To actually rethink what you're going to do. Yeah,
it's very rare for me to do that. I'm like, this might not be the best timing for this one.
Right. Yeah.
Which is rare.
It is tough. And it's funny, speaking of how everybody's so sensitive these days, when I was thinking of what we should call this show, and, we ended up calling it A Conversation Between Friends. But one of the first names that I was thinking was The Redneck and the Snowflake.
That's hysterical.
Let's just get the name calling out of the way, so nobody else needs to do it for us.
But you know what? That's one thing I've always said, and I taught my son very quickly that if you're able to laugh at yourself and you're able to find your flaws and pinpoint them for yourself and put them out publicly, then you can't ever use it against it. I mean, I know people use the term redneck. Majority of people use it in a very derogatory way. I'm supposed to be some big dumb country boy, and I'm terrible, as Kelly's pointed out to me several times, and so is Teresa, that I tend to sometimes play the part until I get tired of it, and then I flip the switch, and they're like, "Oh, you understood all that? Oh shit!"
Right?
Yeah. So, but that's become my entertainment. That's how I amuse myself.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that name went through my mind, but then I thought, there are so many people, kind of like when you considered the George Jefferson and the Archie Bunker thing. There are some people who are so sensitive to that. I didn't want it to be I didn't want it to be negative. I didn't want people
Yeah,
to think I'm calling you a name. I would think it was funny,
I
and
would
you would
too.
think it's funny. You know what I mean? Because I don't care if people call me a snowflake. I don't care if they call me a libtard. I don't care.
I
I
don't.
feel what I feel, and I believe what I believe. And if they had conversations with me, they'd probably find out I'm a lot closer to what they believe than they really know. But they're only seeing the parts of me that are different. So
Right.
yeah.
That's one of my analogies I love to use, and Teresa absolutely hates it because she's tired of hearing it. Not that she hates the analogy, she's just tired of hearing it. The majority of things going on in the world right now, if people would absolutely stop listening to respond and listen to understand, they would find out that one's describing the heads, one's describing the tails, but they're still talking about the same damn quarter.
Agreed. And there was a time when we could disagree, but use our disagreements to come at an issue from all different sides, which is a good thing. That's when it's good to have differences because you look at it one way, I look at it in a different way, but we're both looking to solve it. Now, what's happening is the world is becoming an either or place. Not the world, our country. It's more our country. It's becoming an either or place. And so we're not looking at issues to solve them, coming at them from different directions. We're looking at issues to be right. If my way is right, then your way has to be wrong. Either or. There's no trying to solve it. And
No.
that's what I want to do.
And,
That's my point.
with that being said, that reminds me of a clip of a movie, and I truly don't know the name of the movie, and that's sad. But I think it's Jeff Daniels, where he talks about how America is not the greatest country anymore.
Yeah, you posted that the other day.
I love that. And my one cousin down in Hillsboro, the redneck that he is, I hate this, and this is so stupid, and it's so wrong. I'm like, dude, if you really listen to what he's saying, and you actually go check the stats from that era when that movie came out, he's 1,000%. Oh no, we've never been 25th. And I'm like, yes, we were, and yes, we're actually lower than that now. You're not you're using false patriotism and beating on a chest of a standard that we no longer represent. We can't. Just like he says at the other thing, we can be those things again. We can be those things again. It's up to each one of us. And George in here said, one of the part of what he said is, I'm so tired of social media videos that teenagers are just dumbass people posting videos of violence. I'm seeing this every day, and as long as it's posted, we as Americans will never heal. No matter the skin color, we are all Americans. Very true, and I agree with that. That patriotism I agree with. That I do. We are all American. I about posted that to you the other day too. Black, white, red, yellow, doesn't matter. You're an American. Now freaking act like one. But I thought things are. I'm actually, for the first time in my life, I'm like, you know what?
You're thinking about things. Yeah, and it's funny when you talk about that, because there was another post that you made the other day that I commented on where you were talking about, like, it's the greatest country and it's such a great country that even the haters won't leave. And so I wrote, that's because they won't let me. Right now, to be perfectly honest, I'm disappointed in this country as a whole. I'm not disappointed in individuals, and I'm not pointing fingers at any certain group. I'm disappointed as a whole. And if they would open the borders and let me leave right now, I'd go. It doesn't make me a bad person, but it isn't the greatest country in the world right now. We're a little bit of a laughing stock with everything that's happening. It's kind of sad,
It's real sad. And David Price. Hey, Dave. He's over in Australia, I think. But I don't really get into politics. I never have. I've not cared for several of the last few presidents on a personal level. But that's mine. But, and Dave, don't take this the wrong way. I get all of us as Americans bashing and being mad about our president and supporting himself. I get that. But I love my foreign friends from the UK and Australia and everything else. But when they say negative things about my president, I don't care what they have to say. They don't live here.
It's kind of, you can talk shit about your brother, but nobody else can talk shit about your brother.
Well, no, I'll talk shit about my brother. I'll help them. But yeah, it's their opinion is great and they're entitled to it. And I respect their opinion. But that's all it is. They cannot and will not be doing anything about it. They're not going to be here to vote. They're not going to be here to help pass any kind of laws or legislation or anything like that. So their negativity and demeaning into the conversation does nothing but, to me, but it's like throwing gasoline on a fire to try to put it out. It's asinine. You're not progressing anything. You're helping the insanity and not the progression of possible solutions. So unless you have something to bring to the table with a problem that's going to try to help solve it, be it a different perspective or a different viewpoint or whatever, then you really don't have anything to add to it besides more insanity. And why do that? Why? That's why I didn't make my post. Why? Because you know me, I have a tendency of today I take this side of the conversation. Tomorrow I post this side of the conversation, and I play both sides to see how people's going to react.
Right, because you're interested in hearing what people have to say. And in a way, I like when my friends from other countries post what they're thinking about what's going on. And the reason that I like it is because I think it keeps us all honest. Because sometimes they post things where it makes me uncomfortable, almost embarrassed to be an American. But then sometimes they post things where it's like, wow, they kind of have a better viewpoint of this country than I have of this country. And I like seeing their opinion. I like seeing a fact that it's coming from a completely disjointed place. It's not connected to any kind of politics. It's not connected to who's going to be voting, about for who or whatever. So
it is a completely outsider's unbiased opinion. They are not. They don't have anything to gain or lose, so they can give an honest opinion.
Yeah,
like goes off.
And you don't want somebody who's like just bashing everything, because that pisses me off too. But I like to hear their opinions. But that's just me.
You just don't. There we go. This is what this is about. This is what this conversation between friends. I have an opinion, and by the way, in some ways, to me, opinions are the lowest forms of intelligence. They take no substance to back them up or anything else. It's a feeling. Opinions are based off feelings and emotions, and not intelligence. They really are the lowest form of intelligence out there, in my opinion.
Opinions are assholes. Everyone has one.
Yeah.
So but I don't know.
He said here. I don't know if you can see what I put up on the screen or not. He says he lost connection, but he says what happens in America does have an effect here as well. And I never thought about that perspective also. And I'm sorry for that, because if you guys are following our example, we're really screwing it up right now.
Well, it was David, right? It was David who just posted that. I had your back, David. Don't you worry. You lost connection, but I got him, so it's okay.
I mean, and she's right. It gives an unbiased outsider's opinion, which then can be looked at from a more intellectual stance instead of an emotional stance.
Mm-hmm. And we do, as he said, we now live in a global society. It used to be very much this country was really only affected by its citizen, this country by its citizens. But now, especially with the internet and with everything that's going on, information is available throughout the world. And we do live in a global world now. It shouldn't be so much about each country individually, and we should care about other people's opinions. We really should.
And that's where I 100% agree with you, because I get a very deep discussion for us at work, and for a deep discussion at work is usually arguing whether 2 + 2 is still 4 or not. But
find out.
But we get into the whole race thing, and of course there's some young black men there, and there's some white guys, and who cares? I normally don't look at it that way. But I'm like, you know what? I'm a black guy. They're all like, because I'm pasty white. But I'm like, well, let's look at it as a scientific way or a biblical way, whichever guys you want to go. I said, we all started from where? Biblical guys, the Bible people and Christians all said, well, Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. I said, okay. And scientifically, we all started in the cradle of life. And both of them are in the Middle East or Northern Africa, right in that area. I said, yeah. Which means the closer to the equator you are, the darker your pigment skin is. Yeah. The farther we migrate away, we lose the melatonin, we get lighter skin, blah, blah, blah. It's called because we migrated away from the equator. Yeah. And we all started from Adam and Eve, or one man and one woman. So that means we all started from a dark complected or black male and woman. And as we got away from the equator, we bleached out.
Mhm.
So if we all come down to one man and one woman, whether it be in a biblical sense or a scientific sense, in the creator of life, we'll start out black. I'm just bleached out.
Right.
Like it or not, it's the reality of the situation. Whether you do it on a faith base or scientific base, I'm still right.
The crazy part about that is, though, as we bleached out, how did we suddenly, according to a lot of people, become the superior race? If it began with Adam and Eve, and it began with people who were black, why do so many people perceive us to be superior? Why is Jesus in all the pictures black? Why has history been whitewashed? Why is it so wrong to be a person of color these days? You know what I mean? That's frustrating.
I know what you mean, because, and Dave said, and why I chuckle, not what you were saying, but Dave said, one world family just with some really bad relatives. I'm going to quote that. You know that, right? I hope you don't have that patented, because I'm stealing that subject. I'm copying and pasting right now. But I don't get that. I don't understand that. Do I when growing up, did I have some racist people around me? Yeah. Were they in my family? Yeah. Did we associate with them a whole lot? My dad had me around them a lot. No. I've never understood it, because I go down home to where my family is from, and there's just, dad grew up poor. I mean, they had a 4-room house and there was 11 of them, and they didn't have shit. They really didn't. And the family up the road was a black family, and they were in the exact same situation, and they grew gardens and they traded stuff back and forth and they helped each other. I grew up from a society where my family came from the mines and the stuff of Kentucky, where it didn't matter whether you was black or white. You was going into the same hole underneath the same ground to dig the same rock to try to make a little bit of money to get your life together. So to me, and it's like when I talk about going down home and we're going to have collard greens and all this other stuff, and some of the black guys at work will go, "Man, you're having soul food." I'm like, "No, man, I'm having poor country folk food. We all ate that. We all had nothing. We all shared nothing. It's just the way it is." So I've never looked at it as anything as far as color. I think that the worst part about our society is that people want to break it down to color. You're more controlled by the have, as we call them, the haves and have-nots.
However, what I do want to say about that, and I agree, but there's more to the story. And really, a lot of what we're going to talk about tonight is, I'm going to agree with you almost all the time, but there's going to be more to the story in some instances. And in this case, I think there's more to the story, because are you equal in that sense? Yes. However, there is an entire segment of the population of this country who, whether or not they have the same economic situation, they can't get in their car and drive down the street and get pulled over by a policeman and feel like they are safe. That doesn't necessarily mean that the police are bad, and we're going to kind of get into that, and that's where it's going to get a little crazier. But it's not that the police are bad. It's that they have been treated so poorly, and it's literally in their DNA to be afraid of the system, to be afraid of the man. Okay. And so you can be poor and you can get in your car as a white man and drive down the road. And if you get pulled over, you know you did something wrong, you get a ticket, no big deal. I've heard story after story after story the past few weeks, because what we haven't talked about yet is that I have been going to the protests and have been paying attention to the protests here in Denver. And I have heard story after story of, it's not necessarily that something bad happened, it's that it's terrifying for them to even have a policeman pull up behind them. And this is coming from Black men and women of all different walks of life, whether they're poor or whether they're rich, whether they are high school educated, whether they dropped out of high school, whether they have PhDs. They all feel the same way, or the majority of them feel the same way. I don't ever want to say all. I shouldn't say all. But the majority of them feel the same way. And if that's the case, then there is an issue. And we need to figure out how to change that issue. It's not about being right or wrong, and it's not about the police being good or bad. It's about, why does the Black community feel afraid to have an interaction with the police? Why does the majority of them feel afraid? Even when they are educated, even when they're complying, because that's always the big thing. Well, if they had just complied, that wouldn't have happened to them. And that isn't true either. So
Oh
I,
no.
I get what you're saying about being in the same economic situation. And when you use the words white privilege, that starts to piss people off a little. But white privilege isn't about your economic situation. It's whether or not you have the freedom to get in your car and drive down the street and not have that fear in your heart that if you go a few miles over the speed limit, whether it's justified or unjustified, you still have that fear in your heart when you are a person of color that you will be treated differently if you get pulled over. That is where the system is broken. It's not the individuals, except for there are the bad apples, but it's not the individuals. It's not the policemen who are bad. It's the system that the police administration is set up in that is broken and needs to be fixed. And that's what is going on right now.
I,
Frightening.
no, I see what you're saying, but what doesn't get talked about is this bigger and broader spectrum than just that. When I was to run around with motorcycle clubs and stuff like that, when I had my leathers on, people, when the police saw me, whether I was on my bike, whether I was in a car, they saw my leathers, man, they'd run my plates right now, and I got pulled over all the time. I've been pulled over with 9 guns pointed at my damn head by the police.
Okay, well, actually, I wanted to talk about that. I've got a few notes here. I wanted to talk about how you brought it up.
Being discriminated against happens on all levels. It truly does. Does it seem like it's happening to one more group than others? Yeah, because we're talking about it more. But I guarantee a lot of people don't speak up about it. And wearing all my camouflage and my bib overalls, you've seen it firsthand. People see me and they think, oh, just a big dumb country boy, and they dismiss me for even in the conversation and talk around me and everything else until I finally get in the conversation. So I get it. And I've been in the point where I've been pulled over for just they ran my place and he's one of them. He used to run with them. Yeah. And I would be pulled over and I started getting questioned. I've been taken in and being questioned. Hey, you still associate with this club? No, because they're doing this dumb shit. And I don't want to be involved with that dumb shit. I want to go to prison. So it happens on other levels in other races, whether you be white or not. It happens to a lot of people. Is it really happening that much more by the statistics? Yes. By the way we're talking about it? Yes. But is it that the other groups aren't talking about it? I mean, I know a lot of Mexican people that would say, hey, we're in the same damn boat. Why aren't you talking about Hispanic Lives Matter? We're getting shot. We're getting pulled over indiscriminately. We're doing this. We're getting that. So that's my thing about it is we're only focusing on one group when it is the problem incorporates a nation and a nation of people. Then we need to address it as a nation of people. And if not, then it looks like, well, you guys are okay. We'll let you go ahead and get pulled over for a while longer. We're going to concentrate on this group. When we get this group fixed, we'll fix that group. No, let's fix the problem. The whole problem.
I completely agree.
But
there's 2 different issues. So I want to kind of slow down and go back to one because you've made me think about 2 different things, and I get forgetful when it kind of overwhelms. I know you can do the squirrel thing easily. I get lost.
Crazier and shit.
I gotta take one thing at a time. All right, so let's go back to the biker bias because I have this list of notes over here on the side of my computer, and literally it says biker bias because I wanted to talk to you about that because I wanted to know, and I'm glad you brought it up, about how did you feel about the fact that just because you're wearing your leathers and just because you're riding your bike, the police are targeting you more. It doesn't make it a bad policeman because there might be a policeman who goes out on the weekend and he's in your club, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's not the individual policeman, but the system as a whole has a bias against bikers. Here's the difference, though, Jay.
My own aunt, I pulled in her driveway. She's dead, right? God rest her soul. I pulled in her driveway around my motorcycle with my leather vest on. She ran the house, locked the door, and called 911 because there's a biker gang assaulting her house. It was me by myself.
It sucks, doesn't it? Okay. What I want you to consider this. You can choose not to ride your motorcycle. You can choose not to wear your leathers. You can choose to shave. You can choose to put on a suit. You can choose to drive a nice car. A person of color cannot choose to be a different skin color. So the bias is deeper. Yes, it occurs, and it sucks that it occurs. And that's where the system is broken in the police throughout the system. It doesn't make policemen bad. It doesn't mean I don't respect the policemen, but the system is broken, and there is bias when it comes to bikers, when it comes to Hispanics, when it comes to Black people. But right now, what's happening is the conversation was sparked by what happened to George Floyd, who was a Black person.
Right.
And so who's out there right now are the Black Lives Matter movement. However, they are being joined by, because we had Pride Month, so they were being joined by the LGBTQIA plus community. They are being joined by the Native American community. They are being joined by, in Colorado, we have a huge Hispanic population. Those people are saying, hey, I'm going to come in and be a part of your Black Lives Movement, because I understand that if we can get it fixed by focusing on that, it's going to begin to fix it for everyone. Because as there is more training on learning to let go of your bias and recognize your bias, regardless of what it is and regardless of which color it's about, if you can focus on something, and that's what is happening right now, if you can focus on it, then there's an opportunity to dig the bias out of you. I'm doing that, by the way. I am digging the bias out of myself, because what I've realized is that while I'm not racist, I have bias. I have implicit bias that I was raised with. We all do. And it might not necessarily be about a Black person. It might be about a biker. It's not, by the way. My sister's a biker, her husband's a biker. But I'm just giving examples. I have bias. And this movement, even though it's called the Black Lives Movement, is digging that out of me. And I don't know if you want to continue with because then we move on to the All Lives Movement. And so let's talk a little bit about that, because that's where you were going. So I wanted us to go from biker bias to realize that when there's bias, when it's the color of your skin.
And I agree with that. And Mama D, God love her, said, "Thank you, Kelly. They can't remove their skin." And that's true. I did remove my vest, and I did quit riding a motorcycle, and I did get away from all that stuff because I didn't want to raise my son in that life, because my dad raised me that way. Mm-hmm. So that was a choice of mine. But I know some people that's there that they've gotten to the system, and it doesn't matter what they try to do to change themselves. Every time something happens, the police they're one of the first doors to get knocked on. They come into that system, and it doesn't matter whether they're not wearing their leathers anymore or not, whether they're not hanging out at the clubhouse anymore or not. They're still always on the top of the list because what they did before. They don't ever let it go. I have a friend of mine that went to prison and stuff, and they always say, you did your time, it's all over with. Bullshit. He still has a hard time. He's got a wife and 2 kids. Can't hardly get a decent job because they see that he went to prison and it was for something stupid, but he went. They don't go check and see that whether he's a rapist or murderer or anything like that. They say, "Oh, have you ever been convicted of a crime with the prison?" He has to check yes. If not, then he lies on the application. He still won't get the job. They see that and they automatically throw it away. So, and he's white. So the biases aren't always based upon the skin. And just because you can't take your vest off or your application away and take that away, they still hold that against them. They still are prejudiced against them and treat them like a second or third class citizens because of these things. And that has nothing to do with their skin. That has everything to do with being very, very prejudiced. But they consider that not being racist. And I'd also consider that not racist. That's a prejudice, absolutely. But racist is hating somebody for the color of their skin. Mm-hmm. Not because of my leathers, not because of him being in prison. It's about hate of someone for the difference of their skin color than what yours is, which I'm back with David on that. Which one family, we're what human race, what I don't get how he's don't even get me started on that because I'm going to get into the U.S. Census. I think that's the most hypocritical, biased, categorizing us, cataloging us into cattle herds of anything in this damn world. I hate it.
Well, and it's getting harder and harder to answer the questions because we're all kind of, I mean, not all of us, but we're a mixture, there are people who have a Black mother and a white father. Which box do they check on the census? Are they Black? Are they Caucasian? You know? So, but then other, what does other mean? You know, then you're linking them into a whole other box. I mean, I don't know. I've never been really good with the box. The only thing that I just wanted to say, because I know bias and prejudice, it occurs for everyone. Everyone experiences in a different way. But if it's in a way that you absolutely cannot change, from the moment that you're born, whether you have committed a felony or been to prison or not, the bias is there. Then maybe it's time to say, okay, let's figure out, because there is something there. There is something. And if they're all saying that they feel the same way, or the majority of them are saying they feel the same way, then we need to open our eyes and say, okay, what am I personally doing that I could do differently to make them feel different?
To me, it's this is sad, but to me, it's the most easiest thing of all. You respect person as a person. Doesn't matter. Young, old, rich, poor, white, black, yellow, pink, purple, polka dots. I don't care. I don't care. Wear camouflage. Don't wear camouflage. I don't give a shit. If you're good to me, I'm good to you. If you're an asshole, I'm going to be an asshole. Sorry.
Me too. I feel exactly the same way. But you know that there is an entire segment of the population that does not feel the way we feel, and who actually feels that they have the right to be prejudiced because they are white.
Now, see, I guess I'm lucky. It's kind of like the whole paranormal thing. I've never run into a demon, all that, and everybody else is going to all these places, demons everywhere. I've really not run anybody like that. I did have a guy at work try to say something, and he did say something kind of racist. No, it was racist, but he didn't go as far as getting very vulgar with it. He did, we ought to just kill all the black people because they want to kill us. I'm like, are you that stupid? Are you really that racist? And he immediately started backlashing. I start backpedaling, but back like I'm like, you're only saying that because there's 3 other white guys in here. If there's a black guy in here, you would never say that because you really don't feel that way. You're just trying to play stupid right now and trying to see who's going to jump on the bandwagon. And just
it does really feel that way. I mean, I don't know. Have you watched any of the videos that have been coming out? I mean, I think in a way, having phones on our cameras is great, and in a way, it's not. But the people who are filming these people literally calling out Black people just for being Black and being in their neighborhood, and they're saying horrible, awful things. And so while you might not run into one in your neighborhood, or you might not run into one in your family, allow yourself to watch these videos and kind of open your eyes to, there was one right here in Denver that just happened this week where she was probably a 50, 55-year-old woman following this 20-year-old Black kid who was maybe, I don't know, 18 or 19 down the street in her well-to-do neighborhood because he had taken a picture of a house. I will walk through a neighborhood all the time and take pictures of houses because I like architecture. The good thing about it, though, is that she was following him, saying these horrible, awful, racist things to him. There's another woman following her, a white woman following her with her camera, filming what was happening. The woman didn't realize it until she turned around. Then she tried to enlist the help of this other white woman who said, oh, no, you are completely to blame. You are wrong, and you have no right to be saying these things to him. And I'm not a fan of this whole doxing thing where you put it on the internet and everybody suddenly is getting fired, and that whole cancel culture thing. I'm not a fan of that. But I do like when the cameras are rolling, it makes people more honest, because that lady who was following that poor kid could have told a whole different story about what happened if it wasn't on camera.
That happens all the time.
And it's happening all the time. That's what I'm talking about.
That happens both ways. It does. It does happen both ways. That's the bad thing about it is that a lot of these things aren't happening both ways a lot of times. There's videos of where, well, just the other day, there was a 13-year-old boy, white boy, standing on the corner in Philadelphia, just sitting with his headset on, dancing, waiting on the bus. And a car with some black guys come in there, and then one black guy gets out, sneaks around, reaches all the way around, and sucker punches that 13-year-old kid right in the face. It's a grown-ass man. Knock him out.
Things like that happen. It happens. But the only thing that we can change as white people is our reactions as white people, and we need to fix our side of things.
I want to whip both their asses. The lady for chasing that young man And notice I said young man, and the dumbass that got out and punched that other guy. I mean, they both are dumbasses. They both deserve to be penalized. Now, losing their job and all that stuff, no. Mama D said, I have been spat on because of my choice of who I love. But when they don't see me with my husband, they love me, but together we are treated differently. Mama D, I guarantee you, if I was anywhere near you and your husband and somebody said anything to you, they're going to see me and think camouflage, they're going to get away with it. They're not. I'm going to go punch them in their damn mouth. I will not tolerate that shit. I will not tolerate it. Period. That's sad that. No, it's not sad. I really don't. I don't feel bad about it. I will fight it on a physical level if I must. There is no reason to. I don't care who they are, black, white, yellow, male, female, gay, straight. I don't care. Nobody deserves to be looked down upon. Nobody deserves to be treated like that for no reason, no time, no how. Period. I won't put up with it. And that's the problem. We become such a that's my opinion what the problem is. We have become too soft in our society that we allow these people to continue to do these things, and we do not absolutely call them out and punish them. We keep saying, well, we want to talk about it. No, sometimes talk doesn't work, and you need to take the kid behind the woodshed and bust a little ass.
Yeah, I do think people need to be called out on their racism or their prejudice or their bias. They need to, if it's something where they are out in society and doing something that is just that, I don't even have the right words right now. It's just so flagrant that you have to say something. The thing is what I've been learning by attending the protests, and then a lot of times I don't even attend the protest. I've been watching a live streamer friend of mine who goes down there every night, takes us literally into the middle of the action. When I'm not there and I'm not exposing myself to the all the other stuff, that's going around, COVID and all that crap. But when I'm watching and I'm listening, what I'm realizing is that it's important to me to change white bias because I am a white person. I need to call out other white people. It's not up to me to call out a person of another color for how they feel or what they're doing. That's up to, I feel like that's.
I see that.
It's just, to me, that feels like a way to because it doesn't solve the problem, but I'm responsible for me and my white bias. And so by default, I feel like I should say something to another white person who is exercising theirs. I don't know how to explain that properly.
No, I get what you're saying, but some of these things are so. I seen a gentleman the other day. He was on a live feed that I was watching. He was a black man, and he was quite upset with this white lady that came over to him and pulled this whole crap of saying, "I'm sorry for my white privilege." He got offended by that. Because how dare you? How dare you assume because you're white that you have more privileges and have done better in this world than I have? He said that to actually come to me and apologize. That she goes, well, I'm not prejudiced. She goes, bullshit. You just admitted that you're superior to me by saying that you have to apologize that you have better privileges than I do.
I agree.
He's right.
Yeah, exactly. The important thing when you're noticing your white privilege, if you notice it, or your bias, it's not for you to go to somebody, to a person of color, and apologize to them. That is another racist act. That is another act of violence to do that. It's important to you to fix it so that the situation begins to heal itself. And it heals itself because we all know that we heal ourselves, or we heal the world by healing ourselves. So you don't go to someone, to like a black man, and say, I'm so sorry for all of the wonderful things that I have that you don't have. That's bullshit. He might have a really wonderful life, and that's a racist way to do it.
Absolutely.
But it is important to recognize that we do have a bit of privilege. We need to recognize it for us. Well, we go back to the whole driving down the road and knowing that if you get pulled over, the policeman's going to give you a ticket, and the black driver doesn't necessarily feel that way. So,
But I I still don't. I see people saying it, and I learn a lot of cops, and everything else, and I've known a lot of them. I know some of them because I'm older now. We're friends. I know some of them because I had encounters with them when I was younger and dumber. But I know none of them. None of them. And I can't. The stories that I hear for the numbers that are out there. There are 10,000 cops. There are 10,000 citizens to every one cop. They are so outnumbered in this nation that people that are actually doing that job, for the amount of people and that are making these claims, there would have to be 10,000 cops to every one citizen to constantly be doing this to somebody all the time. And the numbers don't add up to me. The perspective of it. I'm not saying that doesn't happen, because I guarantee it does. But like I said earlier, it happens on many different levels. But like we said, also, that's because they're saying because they're black, and I'm saying because he's wearing leathers and he can take his vest off and everything else. I get that now. I truly do. I just maybe I've lived in a bubble, or maybe I don't pay attention to it. Maybe because people know that they say stupid shit around me, I'm going to call them out on it because I don't give a shit. If you're willing to talk stupid, then I'm ready to treat you stupid.
The way you said that maybe you live in a bubble, what I have noticed for myself anyway, is that I kind of did live in a bubble. And as I've had my eyes open to it, and I've been able to examine my own part in all of this, not anybody else's part, but my own part in all of this, I was living in a bubble, and I did not have my eyes open in the right way.
There's my brother, Jeffrey Morgan. That's because you haven't experienced it. And you're right. But maybe.
We never will, Jay. You and I will never experience being a person of color, so we can never experience their experience.
When I'm cold, I turn green. When I'm hot, mad, I turn red. I mean, I'm more than they are. But my brother, Tony Merritt, and he was the vice president of the motorcycle club. I was the business manager. For a lot of people called me their token white because I was the only white guy in the club for the longest time. But I didn't see that. They were my brothers. I rode with them. We stood by each other. Didn't see color. I never have. I don't give a shit about that. I don't see Jeffrey and say, "Oh, there's my black friend." That's the most precious thing you could ever say. Jeffrey's my brother. Doesn't matter whether he's black, purple, pink, or purple polka dots. I don't care. I don't.
You will never fully understand his experience, though. That's what
I agree with that.
By saying you haven't experienced it, and so you have to realize that until you experience it, and you never will, you can't fully understand it. So what you have to do is take a step back and say, okay, while I don't fully understand that, I do get that maybe I haven't given it enough of a thought. And then I haven't seen it from that perspective, that I can't understand it. Maybe it really is happening. So
maybe I'm too short-sighted. I understand that I can't comprehend it because I haven't experienced it. I get that. I understand it. I can't understand the experience of having a baby because I can't have a fucking baby. So I don't understand what a woman goes through. I get that. I understand these things. And that's the way I learned the best, is for me to learn it, I have to experience it. I'd rather do it than talk about it. That's just the way I've always been. Maybe it's because that I don't see it any other way than we are one race, and I don't care. And to me, it's very simple. If somebody's doing that shit, then we need to put a stop to it right now. Don't placate it like we're doing nowadays. Don't sit there and go, well, they kind of really maybe didn't. No, damn it, they said it. Explain to them right now why it's wrong. Explain to why they can't be like that. Explain to why it can't go on. And if they do that shit again, then we're not going to talk the second time. I'm going to mash them in the mouth. It's real easy.
You can make that decision as an individual to do that with another individual. It's the system that's broken. Again, it's not the individuals, it's the system that's broken.
That's our fault.
It is exactly our fault. But until we recognize what's causing the system to be broken and take our own uncomfortable part in the system being broken, we can't fix the system. We can't fix it by going back and saying, Yeah, but it happens to everybody. Yeah, but all lives matter. Yeah, but but yourself to death. So you have to realize that there's a segment of the population. We have different segments. When a lot of times when people say, and I don't mean that you were saying this when you said it just now, but when people say I don't see color, oftentimes that is an extremely racist statement, because to say you don't see color means you don't see the person standing in front of you, and you are discounting a part of their experience in this world. Part of their experience in the world is that they are a different skin color than you. And they experience the world.
Can be a new skin color.
What's that?
I can go get a spray tan and be a new skin color. That doesn't change the human that I am.
But Jay, you know what I mean by that.
But
you know what I mean by that.
I know what you mean, but that's what I'm saying. It's to me, that's another but. I see them as he is a man. He is my brother. You are a woman. You are my sister. I don't care whether you was a black woman, an Asian woman, a white woman. It doesn't matter. You're my friend, and he's my brother, and you're my sister. And why do we have to put these labels on it? Well, we are all.
Well, okay. So you see me as a woman. Why am I not just a human?
You are human. You're a human first.
But you see me as a woman. So what's the difference between you are a white person and your friend Jeffrey is a black person? What's wrong with seeing Jeffrey as a black person? It's no person seeing you as a woman, is all I'm trying to say.
There's nothing wrong with any of that. Don't get me wrong. That's what I'm saying. But I don't understand why, because Jeffrey's got a tan and I don't, I'm going to hate him. He can tan and I can't. That's maybe that's what I'm trying to say, that I don't, for as childish and immature that I am, 90% of this stuff is about third grade level stupidity to me. Mm-hmm. This is nothing but childish little bullies on the school ground that should have had their little asses whipped on the school ground and been done with this shit. Sorry.
Yes. And the way that we're going to be done with this shit is for those of us who don't feel that way to realize that there are a lot of people who do feel that way. And even if we haven't necessarily encountered them, that it really does happen, and that our friends who are a different color or a different gender or a different sexual identity, that they do experience bias based on something that they absolutely cannot change. And the only way that we're going to fix this is not necessarily by going out and kicking people's asses, although I know what you're saying and I respect it. I understand what you're saying. But the way that we're going to fix it is for us to recognize that there is bias with all of those groups. There is implicit bias with all of them. The only thing is the conversation right now, because of everything that's going on, is centered around Black Lives Matter. And that's okay. And it's wrong for people to then turn the conversation and take it away from them and say, but all lives matter. Because that's not cool. That's not cool. When something happens, like when the Las Vegas shooting happened, right? And everybody put up on their profile picture, Las Vegas strong. Or here in Estes Park, we had the floods in 2013, and everybody had stuff on their pictures, Estes strong, because we're rallying around who needs the help right now. What's the conversation right now that needs something fixed? Because we can't fix it all. You can't instantly fix it all, but you can fix something. So right now, the conversation is Black Lives Matter. So what's wrong with saying that? It doesn't mean that all lives don't matter. It just means that right now our conversation is that Black Lives matter.
I'm not denying that. And we do need to rally around the point that needs the help. Don't get me wrong. But I just can't. Maybe it's just Jeffrey just said, in all your travels, have you ever been judged because your bibs are camo? Absolutely, you know this, and we discussed it earlier, but I can take my bibs and camo off and put on a suit. The problem with it is that people is going to see me, even in a suit, they're going to go, damn, what's that hillbilly dressed up for? It's my personality, and I know how it comes across, and I get that. So, but it's not like you said earlier, Jeffrey can't change the color of his skin, and I can't. But I just don't. Maybe, like I said, I've always fought against these things, and I don't get the point. You cannot fix stupid.
Mm-mm.
Can change the majority of society, but there's always going to be that pocket out there that's going to blame somebody else. And like I said, part of that to me goes back to the U.S. Census. I think that's the biggest thing ever. They want us to identify ourselves, put us in these little categories, and say, well, we're going to give this group money over here, but we're not going to give that group of money over there. But now this group's going to get mad at that group because they got what they didn't get, and now that's how they keep us divided. That's how they. And I think once we realize that, once we stop all this stupid division, then we will get progress. Then and only then will we get progress. When we quit putting ourselves in their categories, because it's the government that does it. We have to put ourselves, and I'm sorry, religion too. We have to, you have, this is a black church, this is a white church. Oh, come on, this is a church. Kiss my ass. If you can't be a church and accept everybody, you're not a church. I'm sorry. I'm not sorry.
That's a whole other.
But I used to have a picture I put up on my Facebook every once in a while, and it happened to be a Native American man, and he has his hand up to the screen like that, and each finger is painted a different color: red, yellow, black, and white. And on his hand it says, "We are all one in His eyes." I'm not a big person on religion. We all know that, but to me, it doesn't matter what you are, where you are. It's all. We are all one. We all, like I said earlier, we either come from the Garden of Eden, we came from the cradle of life, but we all came from one destination. And every one of them is in Northern Africa and the Middle East right there. All religion and science all say that that's where life started for humans. So that means we all came from one place. Why did we decide to start dividing ourselves? According to religion, the Tower of Babel. According to the science, because we started migrating, we wanted to move different places and chase different things. But we still come down to the same. We all bleed red. We all have the same pretty much DNA. We're all one, and I don't get that mentality. Maybe it's because of the way my father raised with military. We're all in this fight together.
Do you know exactly? And do you know what I've noticed when I've gone down to the protests, which has been pretty amazing, is that people are realizing that now, and by focusing on the Black Lives Matter movement, what's happening is that they're drawing in, like I was talking about how, there's the LGBTQIA plus community has been coming down to the rallies. And this is a story that I want to actually tell about one of the first nights that I went down to a protest. There was a guy there. He was a Black guy, and he was dressed all in his rainbow outfit. He was very out and very proud. All right. He was so excited to be there, but he was afraid to join the speakers who were standing around at the Capitol and who were talking about their experience as a Black person. And he was afraid to join it. And one of the guys who has kind of become my hero through all of this, I posted about him a few times. His name is Neil. And he went over and he said to the guy, "Hey, brother, why don't you come over and tell us your experience?" And this poor guy, he got on the megaphone and his voice was shaking. And he said, the thing is that I'm not accepted by the Black community because I'm gay. I'm not accepted by the white community because I'm Black. And he said, this rally, what's going on right now, is the first time that I have felt accepted by everyone. This is the first time I felt love from everyone. And literally the whole crowd started yelling, "We love you. We love you." And it was like right now, just thinking about it, tears were just pouring down my face. It was such an amazing experience. But that wouldn't have happened if I wasn't at a rally that focused on Black Lives Matter and allowed that to just be a Black Lives Matter rally, which turned into something more. And that's what's happening. Conversations are happening because of this movement that are not just about Black lives, but it's okay to leave it at that. And when someone posts the hashtag Black Lives Matter, it's okay to let that stand as it is. You don't need to come in and say all lives matter. We fucking know that, okay? We do.
I finally got rid of the curse. Yay!
Duh. We know all lives matter, but what's wrong with saying Black Lives Matter? There's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't make you a bad person to say that.
No, and I'll let Jeffrey judge on this one, and Mom and Dad and others, because I don't say, when people tell me Black Lives Matter, I have not said all lives matter. My question has always been, I looked at them and said, and who the fuck said they didn't? They're always like, whoa, 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 whoa. I'm like, what? You're telling me that they matter. You
There's
tell
a
me
lot of people that do.
said that they did, and I'll go mash them in the mouth.
There's a lot of people that do say that it doesn't matter. And in fact, Derek Chauvin is one of those people. When he kneeled on George Floyd's neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. Do you know how long that is? I do, because I kneeled in a street and I sat there in silence with about 5,000 other people around me in silence for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. And let me tell you, it's an eternity. And if you can't breathe at that same time, it's an eternity. Those are the people who said, people like Derek Chauvin, who said Black lives don't matter. So that's where it came from.
But he's a piece of shit. Every law enforcement officer, every law enforcement agency that I know of, all said that he's a piece of shit. They all want him gone off the force. They all want all those kind of people gone off the force, because just a few days ago here in Toledo, a wonderful young man, a 26-year-old young man who's a police officer, responded to a call about a strange man in a Lowe's parking lot. Went up there, and the drunk guy turned around, was not race-based, but trying to shine him in the chest, and he died and left the wife and 2 kids. Good cops are dying because of dumb cops like that. And I think that the whole culture, not only in our society, but even within inside the police force, is changing, that they're tired of these guys making them marks. I get mad when everybody starts talking bad about the police officers and saying all the negative things about the police officers. Yes, there's bad cops, but there's far more good ones who's doing good things. And Mr. Officer Daya was one of them. He went into all neighborhoods and would let the kids sit in the car with him, and he explained stuff to him and let him play with the light bar and stuff. He was very involved with his family. He was very involved with his community. His family owned a bakery and stuff. He grew up in that town, and he was shot over something. Some drunk shined for some God knows why. Then the guy went, of course, went in the woods and committed suicide. So they'll never get the answers why it happened. And it was not a color thing. They were both white. So, but good cops who are trying their best, who put their lives on the line every day to try to keep us safe. And now these people are talking about defunding them. What the hell's going to happen then? What happens now when you defund the police? Now you're going to get these stupid, here we go. Y'all going to get mad at me for this one if you're white, because you're going to get mad at me because this is what I believe about it. You're going to have these stupid inbred hilljack sons of bitches who have these militias who think that now they have the right to guard their own property, and they're going to get real damn dumb. Those are the people we need to worry about. Those are the people we need to take the problem from. And defunding the police is not the answer. It's going to perpetuate a worse problem. It truly is.
Let me slow you down again, because now we've got 2 things that I want to respond to. I want to talk about defund the police. But first, let's go back to you talking about, my heart goes out to that Toledo police officer and to his family. I am not for killing or violence in any way, and that is a tragic situation. And I want to tell you a story about what happened at one of the other protests here in Aurora last week. Okay, so in Aurora, they're protesting about a boy who was 23. He was a 23-year-old guy. If you look at him, he looks like a boy because he's 5 foot 6 inches, and he was 140 pounds. He had autism, and he had a blood issue that made him cold all the time. So it was August of last year, and he was wearing a face mask because he was cold, and it was before face masks were in, right? He was wearing this face mask because he was cold, and it was nighttime, and he had gone to the local 7-Eleven to buy himself some tea, and he was standing outside the 7-Eleven, and he was excited, and he was, again, autistic, and he was dancing, and someone called the police and said there is a black man acting weird wearing a mask. The police responded. They put the kid in a chokehold. The paramedics arrived because the boy, I call him a boy, he's 23, but he looked like a boy. He was 5'6" and 140 pounds. He ended up, when they put him in the chokehold, he started freaking out because he's autistic. This is not something that autistic people can handle. He started freaking out. So when the paramedics arrived, they shot him with ketamine, but they estimated his weight at 220 pounds. Okay. That's 1.5 times what it's a half times again what he weighed.
Right? Determined between 220 and 140?
And it killed him.
Oh, yeah.
He died in police custody. Okay, now my story is about Elijah McClain. Say his name, Elijah McClain. That's a horrible story. The Aurora Police Department, which is sort of rotten to the core these days, they hid the body cam footage until just the past week, and it's actually made national news now because Elijah McClain's last words came out, and his last words were things like, "I'm sorry. Oh, wow, you're very strong, aren't you? I apologize. I don't do these things. I don't fight. I'm a massage therapist." He was apologizing to this officer while he had him in a chokehold. All right. So there was a protest at Aurora Police Department this past weekend about that. And there was a group of people standing in front of one of the officers. And I'm not for this, by the way. When they stand there and yell at the officers and call them horrible names, I don't think that's okay. But in this particular case, they had a piece of paper and they were reading Elijah McClain's last words directly to this officer's face. This officer was in riot gear, full on riot gear, right? And all of a sudden he put his mask up and he had tears literally streaming down his face. This is a good cop. This is a cop who knows that what happened to Elijah McClain was wrong and that the officers that did it they at very least need to be fired. He knows this, but he's stuck standing there doing his job, knowing that he's now a mark because of those crappy police officers, because of those bad apples. And that is wrong. Something needs to be done to fix that, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, the defund the police thing, the only thing I want to say about that, and I don't even know where I stand on defund the police, but defund the police does not mean dismantle the police.
That's what Jeffrey said too.
Defund the police means to take away some of their funding because police have massive police budgets. If you saw the numbers, you might be amazed for things like tanks, for weapons that they're using against the American people, which is against the Geneva Convention. They are being funded for things that they don't need when what they really need is to have some money diverted and maybe have social workers who go with them on a call. Because the police don't want to be trained to do that stuff. They're not there to do that stuff. They're there to keep the police or to keep the peace, right? And to serve and to protect us. Wouldn't it be great? Wouldn't it be wonderful if our police friends had someone who could go with them who was actually trained in, say, Elijah McClain, who was autistic and could have recognized that immediately, and that situation didn't have to happen. When they say defund the police, they're using the wrong words, and I wish they wouldn't say it, because that's not what the movement is really about. Although some people will tell you it is about, let's dismantle it all and take them all away. That's not what it's about.
No, you don't want that.
It's about diverting some of the funds and actually putting it into some programs that are desperately needed in our communities. So
Rhonda Hart said nurses restrain people daily and they don't die. They need more training.
Absolutely.
I agree with that. And like Jeffrey also said, they defund schools almost yearly. I agree with Rhonda, but there's a difference. There's a difference between restraining in a hospital and when you're on that street. When you're in a situation where you're having to fight for your survival or you're having to worry about, and I don't care whether you're a cop or not, trust me, I've been in many of them street fights and stuff when I was younger. That's what I pretty much did. There's a difference. And trust me, when you think that your life's on the line, you're not just trying to keep somebody in the bed and all that things. When you think that somebody's trying to take a weapon from you or use a weapon on you, that changed the whole perspective of how you're going to fight.
Jay, Elijah McClain was 5'6" tall, 140 pounds, and he apologized the entire time that officer had him in a chokehold.
And plus they injected him with way more drugs than he's ever hold.
I agree with the nurse who said they need more training.
Oh, absolutely.
Because that isn't always the situation. They're not always fighting for their lives.
No, but
they're screwing up, and they would if they had more training.
Reverse the role. You're a 5'6", 5'8" cop who only weighs about 160 pounds, and you have a 280-pound man coming at you who weightlifts all the time and stuff. Yeah. If he doesn't use more force than what he normally would use, he's a dead man.
But that's where the training comes in. That's the point that the nurse was trying to make, If they had more training, they would be able to use more appropriate force, because what's happening is they are using inappropriate force. And that's why people are dying. It's not about that they shouldn't use force at all. It's not about that they shouldn't try to save their lives and the lives of the people around them, the lives of the public. That's what they're paid to do. It's not about that. It's about using appropriate force. Not everybody that has ended up dead needed to end up dead, and training could have made a difference.
With George Floyd, and there was a guy down in Texas too a couple years ago, a white guy that had the same thing. They put a knee on his head, and he was autistic or something like that. He had mental issues, and he was off his meds and stuff, and he died also. And it doesn't matter what color they are. Those tactics of using the knee on the back of the head were not in anyone's training manual. I've counted, I don't know how many officers. There's tons of police forces come forward since this all happened. No one is ever trained to use that maneuver according to what they're all saying and what they've been saying. So those were just people who went outside the realm and done something extreme. And chokeholds, those have been used. I've been put in a couple of them.
Right. But that officer, well, and here's the worst part, the 3 officers from Aurora Police Department then went out there when all the body cam footage came out. They decided that they were going to make their brothers in blue feel better because they were taking such a hit for having been the officers on scene. So these other 3 officers went out and reenacted the scene at the place where Elijah McClain died, took pictures making fun of the chokehold. And those 3 officers have just recently been fired. But they haven't fired the ones that were involved in the chokehold itself.
I agree with what you guys are saying. Don't get me wrong. But I have Jason is my brother, and he is in law enforcement. And I always worry about him anyway. But now with all this going on, the whole retaliating thing, good officers like Daya are getting shot for what bad officers did. That's the problem. That's part of the problem with me, that we don't address the problem. We blanket everybody. This guy was an idiot. So, okay, Jay's a jackass, so nobody else gets milk and cookies today. Mm-hmm. That's not the way to handle the situation. We need to address the actual problems and address them, not sit back and just talk about them, not sit there and say, well, you could have, should have, maybe you might have. Want to address the problems and eradicate and fix the problem. We don't do that, though. We talk about it. We talk about it. We talk about it. Like you said, these officers are still on the job. There's no goddamn reason why they should be on the fucking job.
Right.
Excuse my language.
That's what these protests are trying to do. They are trying to actually target the situation, and it's working. It might not seem like it's working because it might seem like it's a hell of a lot of chaos right now, but it's working right now. The protests are working. Things are changing. They're changing slowly, but there is a lot of work to do. There's a lot to change, but it's working. People are hearing their voices finally. So, yeah, we need to just fix it. And it's easy to say that, but that word just kind of dismisses the fact that you can't just fix it. The whole system is broken. And because it's broken, I worry about people like Jason. Because it's broken, I worry about my brother who is a fireman, and the fire department often arrives first. Because the system is broken, I worry about myself walking down the street as a white woman in her 50s. Because I look a hell of a lot of like those Karens who are doing these horrible things. And could I then take the brunt of it just because? Do you know what I mean?
Once again, retaliating against the wrong people.
Right. But so it all needs to be fixed. But part of it being fixed is us having the conversation and us realizing that each and every one of us has a piece in it. Each and every one of us has a problem. And one thing that man, what time is it? Oh, have we been here for an hour and a half? That's cool. One thing I want to make sure that I get in. What?
So imagine that with us. We would ramble for an hour and a half.
I want to make sure, because I wrote something so I wouldn't forget to say it. So before we get off on another tangent, because I'm good talking however long you want to, but this is kind of where we're at right now, what we've been talking about. So I'm going to read it so I don't forget what I said. I personally am not very good at being an either or person. I'm better at making and statements. So I support police officers, and I'm sorry. I support police officers, and I'm grateful for the job they do. And I support the Black Lives Movement and the voices that are finally being heard. Most cops are good cops, and the police need to have accountability for their actions, especially the bad cops. Criminals need to pay for their crimes, and cops shouldn't be the judge, jury, and executioner. I want police officers to be safe and to return home to their families after each shift. And I want suspects in police custody to remain alive to face due process. I support the protesters, and I'm against the destruction of property. I am against violence and killing and guns, no matter what. I wanted to make sure that I got that in there. Because it's not an or conversation. It's an and conversation. There is so much that needs to be fixed, but it shouldn't come at the expense of the lives of our friends, like Jason.
Yep. Jeffrey said the same thing pretty much. He said there are a lot more good officers than bad. Until the good ones hold the bad ones accountable, nothing will change. How can they police us when they can't police themselves?
Absolutely. I could not agree with that more. Have you seen the video of the 75-year-old man? He was a white dude, but he was at one of the protests, and the cops pushed him over with their billy clubs and then stepped over the top of him. And he fell on the ground. It cracked open his skull. He now has brain damage. He was bleeding all over the pavement because he stood in their way when they were clearing a protest zone. He was a 75-year-old man, okay? They then put those officers that were involved on administrative leave. They didn't even fire them. They put them on administrative leave. All 57 officers from that special detail that was handling the protest, they all quit that detail in solidarity with the two police officers who pushed over a 75-year-old man. That is not holding your brothers in blue accountable. And that needs to happen. Absolutely. So yes, thank you for saying that, Jeffrey. I agree. And I know you do, obviously. So
I think one of the best videos I saw, and I know Greg's in here saying about the protesters, it's wrong. And protests are not wrong. The violence of destruction of property thing, that is wrong. It is our constitutional right to a peaceful assembly and to protest. That is our right. Whether I agree with what you're protesting or not, it doesn't matter to me. You have that right. It sucks. The Klan got to come up here in Dayton just last year, 2 years ago. They had a big rally up here in Dayton, supposedly. They had less than 100 people show up. Everybody just pretty much just turned their back and didn't pay attention to them. And they went quietly away because nobody paid any attention to them. They had less than 100 people show up, and it was great. Instead of giving them all the attention, we all just fucking ignored them, and they went away. So, but they have that right. I hate their message, but our Constitution said they have that right. It sucks, but it is their right. The destruction and stuff, that's not Black Lives Matters. That is not Black Lives Matter.
That's a whole different thing that's happening, and that's the problem. The Black Lives Matter message is getting lost in the rioters and the vandals. And I'm not saying that there aren't some Black Lives Matter members who aren't responsible for that, just like there are bad cops. You know, if the cops can't police themselves, then certainly you can't expect the Black Lives Matter group to police the bad people in that. Do you know what I mean?
The Antifa ones are the worst. And a lot of them are. One of the pictures that cracked me up is when a white girl's in a black officer's face screaming that he's racist against black people. I'm like, isn't that like an oxymoron?
Yeah. Anybody, I don't even know. Because, you know, it's important. The white allies, I think, are important. And I know that it's important to stand up. But some of those white girls that go down to the protests, I'm telling you, they are angry about something that I don't even know where it came from. It's
Yeah.
like there's rage coming from inside them that I don't even get. I
There's
don't.
a video that I saw the other day. It was a peaceful protest. It was a mixture of blacks and whites together, and it was for the Black Lives Matter movement.
Right.
When their protest was ending, they actually had bouquets of flowers, and
Mhm.
they walked over to the police officers were at, and they didn't get real close to them, but they thanked them for being there, thanked them for their jobs, and laid
Mhm.
the flowers down close to them stuff so they could get them later, and said, just as much as you wanted to go home to your family today, we want to go home to ours. Thank you.
Mhm.
And they all separated very amicably. That is signs of change right
Mhm.
there. When both acknowledge the other one, even though we're disagreeing and we're on opposite sides of this discussion, maybe the cops were they're doing their job, riot control. That's all they were doing. But nobody got crazy and violent. Nobody on either side. And
Include that's what I was going to say, including the police who needed to, in Denver at least, needed to take a step back to diffuse the situation, because when they came in with all of the riot gear and the flashbangs and the the CS gas and all of that stuff, when they came in, right, all that did is incite more violence, and it created more property damage. So I love that. I love, ending it with a kind of a thank you. We're sort of on different sides, but we respect it and we see that there is change.
but that was the epitome of what you were just saying about the officer, the black officer lifted his hand and he was crying because that young man getting, there. Some of them are they're doing their job. They're there to keep you safe. And the funnest one was about defund the police when they try and call the police for protection. I'm like, really? I don't want you to do what you're doing, but I want you to come protect me.
But again, keep in mind when you see the defund the police, that isn't really what it means. It doesn't mean that they don't want the police to do their job. It actually means that they want to free the police up to be able to do their jobs, but not have the police do everyone else's job, which includes being a social worker, which includes, in some of these cases, being judge, jury, and executioner. They want to take that away from the cops.
Oh,
They
absolutely.
want to let the cops really do their job. At the heart
That's
of the
the job.
defund the police, at the heart of the defund the police movement, that's what they're trying to do. But you're going to get all this other noise, just like with the Black Lives Matter movement. You're going to get all this other noise that's going to come in and say, oh, they want to dismantle everything. They want it to be complete anarchy. They don't want to have anybody at all, to call. So that, just keep that in mind, that there's more to the defund the police.
There was a young man that I watched. I don't even know his name. I wish I could find his video again because I would share it. And he was a conservative. And he says, I know you other conservatives are going to dislike what I'm getting ready to say, but I kind of support the defund the police and dismantle the police force. And I'm like, whoa, that's odd. And he said, now hear me out. I'm not wanting to get rid of law enforcement. I believe in law and order. I want to get rid of the police because the Constitution has a clause in there about something about a military force that's not regulated by the people. He said, don't have city police only answer to the mayor. He said, I think you ought to get rid of all of them and make them all sheriffs and sheriff's deputy because the sheriff is elected by the people. And for him to maintain his job, he has to represent, serve, and protect the people or he won't get voted back in. So it is now becoming a force that is to serve and protect of the people, by the people, and for the people, because he is a public servant and he's not beholden to the mayor or the council and all that things. It takes it into a different perspective. I said, I never thought of that.
Makes sense.
So
there is a lot more to this defund the police than just the quick rhetoric that you get from reading those 3 words, because those 3 words are very inflammatory, and in a way I wish that they used a different word. But everything that's happening right now is kind of inflammatory. It's just how it has to be to sort of have everything get heard. But defund the police does not mean dismantle the police. It doesn't mean get rid of the police. It doesn't mean that they don't want to have the police there. And actually, a lot of people in the Black community don't call the police when they have an issue because they're afraid to. So they're already not using the services of the police department because they can't do that safely. Just like if they get pulled over by a policeman, they have just as much opportunity to wind up dead if they call the police at least in their minds. It doesn't necessarily mean that that is what's happening. It's what they think might happen because of this long history of systemic racism. That's why they believe it. It doesn't mean that it's true or that it would happen. It's that that's how they feel. So
Heather Dottie said reform the police, and we do need to reform in some ways. In some ways, we need to reform everything, though. That's where I get into a lot of problems. That I can't just look at one thing. I can, and I accept that one thing, but that one thing's a problem because of this problem over here, and this problem over here, this problem over here, this problem over here, and like it or not, my ADHD kicks in. It's like, well, everybody's like, well, just take her one thing at a time. I'm like, bullshit, just fix it. God damn it. But that's how I deal with everything. Here's the situation. Let's get this done today. Let's go get it done. And I do it. I don't.
But some people need a cause. Some people need. And so what's wrong? Like if you want to fix it all and you're capable of fixing it all, more power to you. That's awesome.
I'm not. I want to.
I know. Me too. I would love to snap my fingers and have instant world peace. I would love that. Nothing, more than anything. But the caution is to not take away from what anybody posts, even if it's not Black Lives Matter. Never come in and say all lives matter. It doesn't matter what the hashtag is. You don't got to say all lives matter. We get it. We understand that, okay? But all lives can't matter until Black Lives Matter.
But people are such a me society nowadays. Well, I'm trying to say this in a very nice way, but there's no way to say it. I'm just going to be me. I'm just going to say it.
Yeah.
It's not that people are against, or at least my opinion, most people aren't against Black Lives Matter. They feel like they're being excluded. Well, why don't my life matter? I'm somebody too. But we've become such a me society, and that's how we've become. And that's the sad part about it is we don't look at it as a bigger picture. That yes, Black Lives Matter. Yes, all lives matters. We all get that. We all understand that. But this is where the problem is, and this is where we need to take the focus at. Like you said earlier, we don't go over to if Ohio is flooding, we don't go over to Illinois and go, hey, you guys okay? You need some sandbags? We go to Ohio with our sandbags. We don't go to Illinois with our sandbags. We go to where the problem's at. And that's what it is. That's drawing attention to where a focus of where the problem is. There is a bigger picture, and the bigger picture all comes into view as you fix the problems one at a time.
Agreed.
To me,
if you want to have a different focus, that's fine. But where it's annoying is, say I post something and I've been to a protest or something, and this has happened a couple of times where I'll then use the hashtag Black Lives Matter. And the reason for that is because then anybody searching Black Lives Matter will find my post. Okay. Yeah. And it keeps the focus on that particular movement because that's what I'm talking about at the moment. And then somebody will come in and they'll post on my post, all lives matter. That pisses me off. I fucking know all lives matter. You don't need to add it to my post. If you want to say all lives matter, go make your own goddamn post on your own goddamn page and put your own goddamn hashtag that says, goddamn it, all lives matter, right?
I love you rolled up.
Does it have to? Because it feels like when that happens, that someone is taking away from the importance of what I feel like I'm sharing, or someone else feels like they're sharing. When you do that, you take away. You say, oh, I don't really care about Black lives. All I care about is that all lives matter. And the ironic thing is that the people who most often post all lives matter, and I'm not going to say everybody who does this, but the majority of people who do that, who post all lives matter, don't really believe all lives matter. Because let's don't get into the immigrants who are trying to come across the border and they don't believe their lives matter. Let's don't talk about, say, Colin Kaepernick, who's kneeling at the NFL games. They don't believe his life matters. They don't really believe all lives matter. They just don't want Black lives to matter. That's how it feels when they post that. So that's my little rant for that part.
I love when you fired up on a rant. I do. Getting you on a rant and it's one of my claims to fame, and getting Christina Rake to use the F-bomb that one and calling people a bunch of fucktards. I got her so riled up she called people fucktards. I'm like, I just get the bishop to cuss on air. Yes, yes.
Oh my God. I love that. And the funny thing is though, I mean, like we're showing tonight, we're disagreeing with each other.
Absolutely.
And we get riled up, but we're not
Yeah.
riled up with each other, and we're not calling each other names, and we're not even calling anybody else names. We're just stating our opinions. And as we said before, our opinions are like assholes. Everyone has one. And that's what I wanted to do. And when I made the meme for the show tonight, and I used that drop in the water and then the ripples, that's for a reason, because I want this to create ripples. I want us to have had this conversation and then people to say, what they said kind of made sense a little bit, and maybe we led slightly by example. I don't know.
I just wish people could drop all this. Racism is one of the most uneducated, stupidest bullshit I've ever seen in my life. I don't care what it's about, whether maybe I know with with my Irish heritage and stuff, I've always had fun with it. Call me a mix must be one of the big insults for me, and I'm like, yeah, well, got me in a lot of fights. I'm like, well, your girlfriend didn't mind getting something to Mickey last night. Oh, fight was on. But I've learned to. That's just me. That's how I deal with things. I've learned that if I turn it around and give them what they're putting out to make them feel that, it usually teaches people a better lesson. Granted, it usually makes someone to punch me in the mouth and hate my guts, but I guarantee you they go away thinking about that there's somebody out there like me who's going to turn this around on you and make it about you. For everything you can put on against somebody else, whether it be because of the race, the religion, their national origin, their sexual orientation, I don't give a shit. I guarantee you I can find something to turn around and poke it right back at you for. Right. And see how insecure you fucking fall, because most people do quickly. And the whole name calling, like you talking about earlier, redneck, snowflake, blah, blah, blah. To me, like, again, I could be immature as shit, but that's even below my standards. That's like sticks and stones. Oh, I'm going to call you a name. Oh, ow, that hurt. Oh, you called me a word.
I got called a name by somebody. One of my friends, she's from England, and she had posted, I don't remember what she posted, but whatever I said, it was just me being curious about something in this particular case, because I often, when I post things, sometimes I'm just curious. I don't even necessarily believe it. I'm just curious about it. And I had posted this, and this guy who also was from England came on the post and called me I know it wasn't very nice, but I have no idea what he called me, because it was some, English word. Yeah. And I'm like, I know that wasn't very nice, but so I wrote back and I said, wow, it's really nice to meet you too. But why do we do that? Why is it necessary when you disagree with someone to immediately resort to name calling? Why not have a conversation? You could have asked me what I meant by my post, which would have been a little bit different than what I actually had posted, But instead he resorted to name calling. It was a pretty cool name. I wish I remembered what it was.
Greg Snipper here said Colin's doing very well now. He says, I'm not racist, but wrong is wrong and right is right. And to address something about Colin Kaepernick and kneeling, when it first happened, I don't care about him being black and all that thing. I get what he sniffed for Black Lives Matter. I got all that. I thought it was inappropriate because of the national anthem, all that thing, because of my having pride in our nation. Mm-hmm. But they interviewed a military man, and they asked him what he thought about it. And I was waiting for him to kind of blast him about how it was disrespecting the fallen and all that and things like that. He goes, that's his right. Mm-hmm. I put my life on the line. I fought for this country. I lost brothers and sisters in war. For him to have that constitutional right, whether I like it or not. He is not disgracing my brothers. He is not disgracing my sisters. He is exercising his constitutional right that I fought for. So the man that put his life on the line, to put it that way, I see his.
The reason that Colin Kaepernick kneels, he first started out by sitting. He would sit for the national anthem. And a military guy contacted him and he said, this really bothers me. He's the one who suggested, he said, I would rather that you kneel. He said, that would make me feel better. And Colin Kaepernick said, okay, I don't want to disrespect the troops. That's not my intention. My intention is to protest. It's to protest quietly It has nothing to do with disrespecting the flag or the national anthem or the troops. It had nothing to do with that. He said, I'll kneel. I'm great with that. So then, of course, he started kneeling and people lost their shit. But the funny thing is, if you go into the flag code, and I know everybody's posted this, if you go into the flag code, there are 100 things that we all do, like wearing flags as clothing, wearing flags as bandanas, stretching the flag across a field at the beginning of the Super Bowl where it's being displayed horizontally. That's disrespecting the flag. It's actually listed in the flag code. You know what's not listed in the flag code? Kneeling.
There's a lot of things.
There's a single place where it says that you have to stand for the national anthem or for the flag. That does not say anything about disrespect. But what is disrespectful is what a lot of these same rednecks are doing by wearing their bandanas with their flags, or even advertising with flags behind it. That's not supposed to happen. That is actually listed in the flag code.
Had to pick on us.
I mean, let the poor guy kneel. What is wrong with letting him kneel? Who cares? If you want to stand all day for the national anthem and that makes you feel proud, that's great. But if somebody else, an American, like that military guy said, wants to kneel for it because he has the right to do so, so let him. Who cares?
When he put it that way, though, that he said, I put my life on the line so he could have that right. I'm like, he paid a price that I haven't paid, so where do I really have a dog in this fight? I don't. I did not sacrifice. I did not make that sacrifice. Many of my family have. In fact, you go back, Thomas Lynch Jr. is on the Declaration of Independence. My family's been fighting for this country from the beginning. Mm-hmm. But I didn't make that sacrifice.
Right.
I personally don't make the sacrifice. So I really don't have the right to have an opinion on that. And I respect the guy that did put his life on the line to stand there and say that, like he did, and he is 1,000% right. He now has that, and I let it go. And
well, we do all have the right to have an opinion on it. You do have a right to have an opinion on it, because as Americans, we have the right to have an opinion on that stuff. But the important thing is to take it a step further, like you and I are doing tonight, and have a conversation, which people did with Colin Kaepernick, and said, hey, what does this mean? What are you really trying to say? And he said, it's not about disrespecting anything. But the problem is the people who didn't want him to do it, they wanted to silence that message. Just like with the Black Lives Matter movement, it's silenced by the rioting and the violence and all of that stuff. Their real message is getting silenced. And so if you listen to what he had to say and you listen to his message, you might say, okay, maybe I'll even kneel with him one day, because I understand that there is injustice and it does need to be changed. And maybe by drawing attention to it, this might help to make a difference. I don't know.
So we do need to make a difference in this world. We do need to leave it better than what we got it. In more ways than just this.
I think we've done that tonight, actually.
Well, in more ways than just this.
Yeah.
First, we have to cure, like you said earlier, we have to heal ourselves to heal the others. Mm-hmm. Once we heal ourselves, we heal the others, then we can heal the world. And we maybe we'll stop putting money before everything. And by the way, that little thing about no more guns, I do own guns.
I don't judge other people. I don't like guns. So I put that in there because that's important to me. But I don't judge you for having guns.
I don't even hunt. I haven't hunted them since my dad passed away 20 years ago. So, yeah. But I can kill a Maine beer can and tear up some badass paper. I'm still a good guy.
I was raised by my grandfather, who was a hunter, and he had a gun case, and he taught us to use guns. I know how to use a gun. I know how to respect a gun. I know that a gun is always loaded. I know all of that stuff. I personally just don't like guns. That's my own personal thing. Absolutely. But it doesn't mean that you can't have a gun.
I know, but I just want to pick on you about that a bit. I had to pick on you a little bit about that. Come on now.
Can we still be friends if I don't like guns, Jay?
Absolutely. Just don't take away my camo and my guns.
Okay. I'm not going to your guns.
She's like, you can keep the guns. Get that nasty camo off. What the hell's wrong with you?
Right?
My son, it's like I got 3 different styles of camo on right now. It's like, my camo clashes. This isn't right.
I actually like the camo. And I like the fact that you wore the camo tonight. It's almost like you're sort of making that statement. It's like, as different as we can be.
We are.
Out, as different as we can be, look how similar we really are.
And that's what we was talking about earlier. It's a quarter. One's looking at the heads, one's looking at the tails. It looks completely different, but if you put it together, it's still just a quarter. Yeah. And I love that old Indian saying that the right wing and the left wing are wings of the same bird.
Well, the same bird, exactly.
Still the same bird. It's got to have
the one where people are standing on the ground and it's either a 6 or a 9, depending on which side of it you're standing on. You know,
there is good in both sides. There is bad in both sides. But until we're able to sit down like we are right now and have a discussion with an open mind and an open heart, we can't agree to find a middle ground. And when we find that middle ground, we will progress as human beings and as a society. But until that time, it's going to continue this like snowflake, conservative, Trumper.
Right. We need to find the middle ground, and we need to find it fast. And it's up to each of us as Americans to find the middle ground, not wait for our government to find it for us, because they're hopelessly flailing. And I'm not pointing fingers at any particular, not even both sides, all of them, whether they're on a side or not. It's up to us. We need to take back our power. The power, that's another thing from the Black Lives Movement, power to the people. We do have the power, and we need to take it back. And we need to find our middle ground and remember, we're not enemies. We both want our country to be better. We want it to be better in different ways, but coming at it from those different perspectives, I think can make it better all the way around.
It's the same thing with what we do in the parent. A bunch of you guys are on the ethereal planes, or what do you call that? You guys up here in the love and light and all that stuff, and then you got people like the woo-woo shit. And you got people like me who's more grounded, more down to earth, and more about the science side of it and all that, the gadget and all that stuff. But together, when you put them both together and you work together, it's one amazing experience. And that's what people haven't learned, is that
it's magic. We need that. You need more woo-woo in your life, and I need more groundedness in my life. And so when the two of us work together, we have amazing experiences. So yeah.
Absolutely. And this is part of it here. Like I said, we come at it from totally different perspectives, but we actually, when we sit down but we've always had that coming out. We've always talked things out. Even when we disagree, we've always talked things out. And to come to find out that it opens your mind up. You've been one of the people that's challenged me all my life. Like, since I met you, it's like, do you really think that? What about this? And I'm like, damn, I didn't think of that shit.
Yeah. And sometimes you're also like, I still can't get on board with it. And I'm okay with that too. I'm not here to change your mind. I'm just here to say, have you thought about this? And you cause me to think about things differently as well. And I appreciate that. And I appreciate having people in my life who think differently than I do. And I'm so tired of people being so either or. And that's why I wanted to write what I wrote about the either or, because as you can see, it's very important to my heart because it made me emotional. So
Jeffrey, though, I love him to death. He's my brother. I'd smack the hell out of somebody for him. But if I was to say it was dark out right now, he would say it was light. He likes to argue with me he takes the opposite on everything I say just to get me going.
I think that's fun. I like playing devil's advocate sometimes, where I take the opposite side. I don't believe it at all, but I can argue it like the best. So,
well, yeah. I do the same thing to him too, though. So
relationship, that challenges you.
Now, we don't do it constantly, but when we find something we want to challenge the other one on, and we'll flop it back and forth. One time I'll argue this side of it, and then he'll argue the other side, and then we'll flop it back the next time and start arguing.
I don't want to hear about the flopping back and forth you guys are doing.
Oh, it's a debate and argument.
Oh my God.
Mama D, you asked if you would share your words so that she can share them.
I'll post it on my page.
There you go.
If that works. Yeah.
Jeffrey said we need another road trip. Teresa, bless her heart, we was going through to Ashmore, and Jeffrey lives in Indianapolis, so we stopped and picked him up on the way through. So Teresa was stuck in the car with the two of us arguing from Indianapolis to Ashmore, and then from Ashmore to
you should have just stopped and made you guys get out.
2 hours one way, 2 hours back, 4 hours being different, just debating back and forth every little nitpicking thing.
Oh my God. That's awful. That's funny. Well, it's probably getting to the point where we should wrap this up.
Yeah, it's been 2 hours.
I know, for God's sake. I think we should do more of this, though. We don't necessarily have to make it a regular thing. I think we should do more of this, though. I think this was beneficial, at least for us, if not for anybody else. And
I
think
get something out of it. I always do get something out of it, and I love the perspective. And believe it or not, I learned one of two things. Either I keep my mind inside of a little bubble where everything is just cool, or I just really don't really give a shit about all the stupid things that other people are saying and doing. I judge people by who they are and their actions and their deed. No other way.
Yeah.
No other way. Not by race, religion, national origin, color, skin. I don't care. Straight, gay. If you're good, I'm good. If you're bad, I'm an asshole.
If you want to keep yourself in a bubble, if it is a bubble, I don't know, because it's not up to me to judge. Just remember to examine your own bias on a regular basis and make sure that you are doing what you can do to make a difference for anyone in the world, not just for Black Lives Matter. That's just what we were talking about tonight. For everything in the world, because again, we can only heal others by healing ourselves. So just keep examining yourself. You can do that from inside your bubble as much as you can.
Absolutely.
Bubble, so
take care of each other. Be good to one another. Be good to yourself, but be good to each other too.
Absolutely.
Seriously. It's real simple. Be nice. It's not that difficult. Be freaking nice.
That's where you just need to end it.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for joining us for 2 hours of Kelly put up with my shit.
And you couldn't have with my rants.
We will be back. We will do this another night. Maybe it'll be weekly. Maybe it'll be bi-weekly. We'll figure that shit out because there's so much more that needs to be discussed, and there's so many things. And maybe actually every once in a while we'll get some of you guys to join us because we can do that with StreamYard. Cheap plug there for the company.
Yeah, it's all fancy now.
Oh, wait a minute. What did you ever say? That wasn't an insult, just fact. You never experienced being Black in America, just like I've never experienced being white. You don't want to experience it, man. We're full of stupid people. With that said, good night. Thank you, Callie.
Good night, everybody. Love y'all.
We're full of stupid people.